Some big topics that have bubbled up recently have been certainly the viewability question and fraud, and there's a lot of discussion and what is a viewable ad, so forth. Where do we stand today versus this time last year?
Come a long way. We've definitely come a long way. If for no other reason than everybody's talking about it, right? Even last year, I think Vivek started it with his speech when he took over as the chair, and Dave, pushed it even, a lot more to the fore. But we see agencies like Group M come out and very clearly say we will only we want to transact on 100% viewable ads, and so that creates a center of gravity, right? That's real money talking about how we're really going to make this work, and they've done a nice job. And I think a lot of the marketers have come out and said, why is this a bar that we can't? Why shouldn't we be striving to meet 100% viewable ads? We want people to see our ads, right? And so I think it's created a great dialogue. There are 15 companies now that are accredited by the MRC to measure this, which creates a little confusion, but it's good because it'll sort itself out. Certainly the quality publishers are cleaner. They understand much more what it means that when you go out and buy traffic, then you get out of the viewability issue, right, which is about measuring how well you do and understanding how readers interact with your content online and making sure that you are able to move the ads appropriately. And then you move into fraud a little bit, right, when you start to think about how do I extend my audience, who do I work with, who are my partners, and that's another area where people are a lot smarter than they were a year ago. They've had to be, but there's still work to be done because there's still people out there. There are people who accidentally don't play, make mistakes, and there are people who are trying to make mistakes.
And what about the advertisers? Are they comfortable? Are they more comfortable? What's the perception on the buy side around this whole thing?
On the marketer side,
yeah.
I think they're the bully pulpit, right? Yeah. They say we want to have 100% non-human traffic, and we want 100% viewable ads. Make it happen, right? Now, a lot of them are good. They roll up their sleeves. The people that have contributed to the 3MS process are tremendous, right? There are marketers across the country, across all levels, who have been a part of that process. So they're not in any way abdicating. They are definitely contributing. But it's still on us to really, get our house in order.
So Randy, a lot of talk about content, branded content, the big opportunities. We've seen some big moves from big publishers. Tell us what the opportunities about so-called native advertising, sponsored content, however you would like to describe it. What's the opportunity, and can it scale for big companies like Gannett, New York Times, so forth?
It absolutely can. The big opportunity is, I think they framed it well here today. There's context, commerce, and content, right? Content being the one where you say, all right, how are we going to work with marketers and brands to get their message in front of our consumers and our audience in a way that isn't just traditional? Because it should be done. There's so much content being created. We just watched the Maker presentation. There's so much great content being created by people who aren't thinking about advertising, but it becomes part of a brand message in of itself, right? And so thinking differently about how we work with brands to be able to create messages that connect them with our consumers. I mean, we have a Gannett studio, just like most companies have created a center of gravity for this, and it's fun. It's the most exciting place to be, really, because you're thinking every day about how do we do things differently. And USA Today is a big brand, obviously an important brand within Gannett, and it's a playful brand, right? It relies heavily on infographics and images, which fit perfectly into the whole idea of how do you create content that isn't ads and banners, but that does promote a brand's message in a way that they're comfortable with, and there's no set way to do it. It's different every single time, which again makes the business a lot more fun.
And Randy, just as a follow-up, so you guys have these great creative people, and the other magazines and newspapers are building these kind of custom studios to create this stuff. How is it viewed? Where is it surfaced? Is it syndicated? Is it bought media? How does that work?
It's surfaced throughout the site, right? And we have to, you cannot put it, the only single rule is you can't put it into a traditional ad unit spot, or it just looks like an ad unit and it loses all of its potential and power. So we're still experimenting with how do you find different ways to make it feel organic, and yet clearly, everybody wants it to be understood. This is paid content, however you want to call it. It's promoted content. So more in the editorial well, with some sort of, marketing, just to say, hey, this is a little bit different certainly different than an ad, but a little bit different than our content as well.
And finally, how do you price it, and what's the ROI? Because it's different than what you would normally sell at CPM, right?
Yeah, it's very different, because it's not a formula, and so there isn't really a short answer to how do you price it. A lot of it is the production, right? How much time, there can be, some of these things are 6-month programs where you send people out and do videos around the country, maybe around the world. That involves a different kind of pricing than something that can be done, with a couple of meetings and what kind of assets do you have, let's put it together. So pricing is, ranges dramatically, and it's driven by the production side of it, really.